Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We are gonna pick things up right where we left them yesterday. So yesterday we covered what is Node, what is Express. We're able to get read to work in our CRUD, right? So we're able to display data on the page. So today what I'm gonna cover is the rest of CRUD, which would be create, which is our new route, update, which is our edit, and destroy, which will be our delete. And I'm also going to be covering controllers. And if we have time, adding CSS perhaps at the end, just to make sure you guys feel good about that stuff. Okay, so I am going to try to make this less than an hour. Okay, maybe an hour-ish, so bear with me again. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Feel free to jump in with any questions. I'll try my best to answer them, but I'm gonna try to get through the end today. Okay, so I'll make everything bigger again. Clear to clear out your terminal. Let's see, where am I? Okay, cool. So these are the same files that I was working with yesterday. It's on the GitHub link I posted. If you need it, I can post it again. But let's go ahead and open these up in Atom. Okay, let's get everything nice and organized. Okay, all right, cool. So this is where we left off yesterday. Just to recap what we set up, we have our main server page, server.js. We set up our requirements, our middlewares, at least most of them. Today we'll fill out the rest. I have my controllers and my listeners, and this is where we connect to. We also started building some views. And all we got to is the index page, and we're able to display the data that is stored in our data.js. I just made one change. So instead of to-dos, again, going with my food theme here, I guess I'll create like a menu app or something. It's not a simple thing. So I have two pieces of data for now, which is description, so like the name of our food, and our price, which is a number. But yeah, this is what I made changes to. Okay, so let's get started. We spent a lot of time setting things up, but I think you feel really good about it now, and now let's get things rolling. So actually what I wanted to start today with is our controllers. Okay, before we start putting our views and then like messing around with our controllers, again, like I like setting things up properly and then building on top of it. And controller seems to be like a really confusing thing. And again, I want to show you it's not at all. It's really cool. All right, so so far I have all my routes listed on my server.js. What we're going to do is we're going to use Express router. What we're going to do is basically extract our routes here onto a different file and folder here, and I'll show you how to do that. It's the same thing, right? Yesterday we were talking about our views. We have this main layout.hbs page, and as we build more views, we have our index, we'll build a new edit, for example, and each page will have its own little piece of HTML. And basically what that is instead of having like a huge HTML page here, or in this case, HBS, for example, oh no, for example, our layout.hbs without handlebars would look like maybe this, for example. But instead of having like a really big HBS page, we're just separating out our code into much more manageable pieces. It does get very overwhelming, I guess, if you have so many files up. So I would recommend like only keeping the files that you're working with open, because you're gonna go crazy trying to find where you're at, especially if you're making changes and forgetting to save. So as I click, I'm always pressing Command S like 3 times, because I don't want to mess with figuring out why something's not working. It's because, oh, I didn't save it to begin with. All right, so I'm not going to deal with views just yet. I'm going to set up my controllers, and then we'll continue to build out our routes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I already have this controllers folder in here. It's in my root directory. So if I go here and ILS, I have my controllers folder, just like we have our views folder. Our server.js is in the root as well, and when we run Notamon, again, it's reading this. So always make sure you're in the right directory and take your time. So since I already created it, I think I did it yesterday. There's nothing in here yet, so let's go ahead and cd into controllers. Now, as far as like naming goes, try to call it controllers. It's kind of like a convention, and it's best practices as well. Once we go into like Ruby on Rails, like syntax really matters. You know, Express is able to find, okay, views, okay, you have a views folder. Controllers, cool, the controllers folder is here. And Express is more forgiving, but like Ruby on Rails, if you misspell it, it's like it doesn't exist. And just some word in you. I'll make sure you make that mistake like 20 times later in the course. But anyway, for now, let's go ahead and build our controller. So we're in here, and there's nothing in here yet. So I am going to touch a JavaScript file. Let's call this, I'm going to call it food.js. Again, going with my food thing here. It's unavoidable. So you go ahead and touch it, and it populates in here. Just always double check that your controller files are always in this folder. So again, before you even like start coding things out here, just take your time as your stuff set up. Like always check this. Always, always, always. But here we go. So whatever like worries you had about controllers, leave them at the door. We're gonna start this again from scratch. So the first things that I do, it's basically another JavaScript file, right? Just like our server file, we require things at the top. So I'm going to do the same. Again, I'm just going to copy paste my comments, but again, you should feel free to type out however you want it to. But on this route, on this controller page, this is a controller, we're going to do our requirements. We're going to, yet again, require Express. So this syntax should be familiar to you guys. Okay, we're going to require this thing called router. And this is the syntax. So Express has this thing called router. And, you know, I'm going to go ahead and do this. We are also going to declare or require our data. And I'll explain how everything connects, so don't worry. So like going with yesterday's stuff, I'm going to just try to call everything the same. var things, it's not very descriptive. So in yours, like try to make it more descriptive. Like if you're using users, put users. You could put data if you want. Just be consistent with those variables. But to require things, and if this is our data, so to clarify, coming from our data.js file. We require it differently. So on our server, remember I explained like on this page, we access this file by going up the directory and back down to data. But essentially what we're going to try to do is instead of accessing data on the server page, what I'm basically doing is deactivating it here. So I'll save that. And instead I want to access the same data. I called it var things, so I'm going to do the same, var things. And require, and this is where I was saying the syntax is going to change. Since we're in the food.js file here, this time it's not free floating in a root, it's actually in the controllers folder. So we have to access this data file properly. So what that means is we have to go up a directory, which is, if it was just one, it'd be dot, but we're going up to, right, controllers back up to the main root. And then we're going back down to our data.js file. Great, so goes up one, goes up two. Within here, access the file called data.js. And that's all we're requiring for this page. So far, so good, right? Okay, so there's one more part for this as far as setting up this JS file. And it's very similar to what we did here. we're going to be using module.exports again. This is going to help us pass information or pass data. In this case, this is an array, but it helps pass data between files. So that's what we're going to do. So down here, let's copy paste. Again, I like organizing everything. It helps me like really understand where everything is. But I'm going to call this exports. And we're going to save module.exports. And like before, right, I said it should be an object. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pass in this router, which is an object. So router. This is using express.router. Okay, cool. And then basically all you're doing in this, and I'll demonstrate again, like what is going on here? Why do we even need this? This is basically where our routes will go. Okay, so let's take a step back. Let's go back to our server.js. I feel like we felt really good about, you know, putting our routes here. We're able to access it, right? So let's actually run it. Ugh, my gosh, that was like the worst typo. Okay, I run Nodamon. Again, it knows to run server.js, right? We didn't touch it from yesterday, and our server's up and running. Cool. So now let me access localhost 3000. Oh yeah, okay, cool. Actually, I love getting these errors. I think it helps us a lot. All right, so I run localhost 3000. Again, remember, I'm not getting like, you know, cannot connect, cannot find. So that means it's working, but let's just read through the errors. We get two. We get one in the browser and we get one in the terminal. So on the browser, like the biggest telling thing is without even looking at the rest of this stuff, I know it's overwhelming, you just look at the first line. So it says reference error, things is not defined. Okay, no problem. So let's go back to our terminal as well. We get the same error message, things is not defined. And it tells you here where it is. See, it says server.js on line 33. We're getting it the same here, server.js line 33. So we know it's dealing with the same error. Okay, so server.js line 33, it's right here. Yeah, it's because I commented out my bar data things. So if I were to save and restart it, there are no errors anymore, right? What I'm trying to do is not put my data here. I want to put it somewhere else. Okay. So before I console this out again, I'm just going to show one more time a quick recap on how the routes work on server.js versus like in the controllers folder. It's not too bad. Okay, so just to remind us, right, if we go to /root, then all we get is our menu, our awesome menu. And if we go to /food, which is this route here, it'll hit that route. And then going even further, if I want to go to like food/fruits, right, food/fruits, I hit this, the fruits. And lastly, just to remind us what this little wildcard thing does. If I go banana, oh man, banana, I hit this final route. So, you know, if you have a very simple site, then okay, I guess you could put everything on your server.js. But, you know, as we get more complex or we're trying to add more routes or we want to expand our app, this is not going to be the best solution because it gets really cluttered and it'll get kind of super confusing. Right, because we don't even have like our edit route, new or anything. So imagine how crazy server.js would get. And that's why we use the controllers using router. All right. So you guys probably have some experience already with this, and you probably notice there's like still a lot of components to it, and you're probably like figuring out like, okay, where do I start first? Where do I start? That's really up to you. As long as you get all the pieces going, that's where I recommend. But I'll show you my approach, I guess. And again, just doing this off the top of my head, so hopefully we'll be able to debug any problem coming in our way. But what I'm first going to do is I'm going to console log these out, right? Because I'll get errors because I no longer want my data to be accessed on server.js. And I'll leave these as comments here so you know that they were here before. And actually, yesterday's code is separate from today, so you can kind of compare day one stuff versus today. But anyway, on my server.js, the only route I want, it needs to talk to something, right? If I completely black this out, remember it's the same thing. Like, okay, my local host doesn't even know where to go. There's no route. There's nothing, right? So we want to keep our root route open. And a root route, you know, this is kind of like your home page. And you know what? All I'm going to do is render just the index page. Again, I'm not passing data to the front. It's just like my home page, my welcome page. If anything, I could just if it helps you to visualize it, see, keep your files closed if you're not working on them. Let's go to our index page and just put like, oh, no, our home page here. Let's just say, you know, welcome to my store. Gosh, I don't know. So we're asking it to render index, but you know, let's just render layout. Why not? Just to have something on our page. And again, this is totally up to you. You create however you want it, as long as you know how to link up your views and how to access it via your routes. Okay, cool. So welcome to my store. It does this funky thing where it shows up twice, and I still couldn't figure out why it does that. Whatever. I'm not too worried about it right now. We can figure that out later. But okay, so that means, okay, I want my food route though. So if I'm not going to put it here, where does it go? All right, so that's why we're pretending all this stuff. It helps you to visualize it again. I'm going to copy this. This stuff is basically going to be accessed here, okay? And it's not quite set up properly, but if it helps you, like, we're not changing any functionality, we're not changing the routes, we're not changing the syntax, we're simply going to access this, these routes on a different file. And as you have more controllers, or as you have like more, I guess, pieces to this app, maybe you have your users, you have locations, I have like favorite movies or something, you kind of want to put each controller's routes in their own thing. So I'll make this clear. So, okay, on server, again, the only thing I have right now is my basic server setup. I don't have data being linked to this page, and I just have my route, my root route. Cool. So let's get to this part. So here's some syntax. And I would just suggest like memorize it or reference it. Again, I like typing things out just so I can get practice. But if you do copy paste, just make sure you understand what you're copy pasting, and I'll show you what that means. But what we're going to do is we're going to declare our food controller right under here. Before get, I would just like put all our controllers in between here before I put like my main route. I don't think the order matters, but like flow wise, it just makes sense to me. So you know what, let's call this food controller. This seems to be like the standard. So if you have like, I don't know, user, you want to be like user controller, but it's very clear that it's a controller, not like data. It's not a route or anything. So call it whatever you want, but try using camel case and controller. But this should look familiar, the require method, right? What we're gonna do, remember what require does once again. It's basically pulling in anything we need outside and we're cementing it to our app. But we're gonna be requiring our food.js file here, okay? So the syntax in here, again, reflects the relative pathing to that. So we're gonna go up one directory, go back down to our controllers folder, and go back down to our food.js file. So this is a two-part thing. So 2 parts. So again, if you're debugging, you're like, okay, I required it, but it's not showing yet. It's because we still need one more piece to this. And that will be a express method. So app, right? That's our whole app using express. Use, and I think I think common solve. This is going to take 2 params here. The first one being the route. Let's do route and the data, right? Kind of the same. I think we put this somewhere as well. But anyway, so app.use. So the route we want to access is /food, right? So like before, we were like app.get/food. As soon as we get a /food request, execute this code. It's going to do the same, but this controller is going to say app.use. Oh, here we go, /food. But I am going to go instead to the food controller. So these are the 2 pieces of info you're going to need. Declare your JS file here, and then we pass it as the data here. And make sure these are the same name, right? So if you call this like foods, I mean, it's food. These are not going to link up, right? Because you have to make sure you're consistent with your variables. Alrighty. So, so that's what you do on server.js for now. I lied. No, it's not. Totally lied. Give me 1 sec. Nope. I lied again. That's it. That's all you do. So this is all you have to worry about on server.js. Now, you know what? I'm going to close out of server.js because I don't need to touch this for now. Ah, my toolbar is on this. All right. So I'm also going to close out layout.hbs. So here we go. We have our food file. Again, the only thing I have are my requirements, express and router. Things, again, things is my actual data, right? This is my dummy data. It's hard-coded for now until we are able to bring in our database, which is, again, like in 2 days. So get cozy with this stuff, I guess. And under here, I have exported module.exports equals router. Cool. And why do we put this again? Just like, again, just one more time, why is module.exports router? That means we're able to access everything on this page in this variable called router. Okay. So let's start building our first route. Let's see this in action. It's really kind of the same concept. Give me 1 second. You know what? Let's do our, what we want is our root directory here. So, oh my gosh, how many root directories are there? There's however many you need there to be. And what this means, I'm not talking about localhost 3000. That's the root on our server.js file. What I mean here, though, since we're on our food controller, and because on server.js, I'm saying, hey, for any instance of /food, use this. That means this root directory will actually be referring to localhost 3000 /food, I guess, with the slash, right? Because that's the root. Okay, so let's make some sense out of this. Now, on server.js, we use app, but we don't need to do that here. We're actually going to use router. But it's going to be the same syntax. Router.get. Actually, you see how I had this before on server, app.get /food. It's basically the exact same syntax. So I'm just going to copy it. But instead of /food, again, remember, this is our root directory that we're working at this point. So all I need is a slash instead of /food. If you do like /food here accidentally and you're like, oh, I don't know why my /food route isn't working, it's because if you do this, you're actually accessing /food/food. Okay, so again, pay attention to how you're building out your routes and maybe see like what error messages you get here. But anyway, so to access just /food, we're gonna do a root route yet again. And same syntax, right? We pass in res, and I'm gonna build it out just like I did yesterday. I just wanna send something just to confirm like it works. Otherwise we can figure out why it doesn't. Okay, I press Control S, there are no errors so far. I'm gonna reload this page. Cool, my root route is still working because it's hitting this on my server, app.get. And now I'm gonna try to access /food. And we get exactly what we wanted, right? On our food.js file, all I'm sending is yum food. Confirm again with our Morgan, we're getting a GET request for /food. So that's what the router does. Instead of putting it here, you could just send that route somewhere else. And again, that's why it's called a controller. It'll, I guess, navigate the traffic coming in, like, okay, I have a get request for /food. Here we go, this is what we do, but all right, we're gonna execute food controller instead. And food controller is declared up here, and all that is the JavaScript file up here. And the reason why it works, the reason why it's able to talk to each other is because we have this module.exports equals router out here. And that's why it talks. So I guess if you forget your router or you forget to export it, you'll get errors, right? So again, to read your errors, here we go. Type error, router.use requires middleware function but got an object. Oh man, why doesn't this work? Double check 2 things. Did you actually declare router with the right syntax? And lastly, did you make sure you exported that file? At this point, are we good on what controllers does? Does it make sense? Yeah? Okay, cool. So at this point, we're just going to continue building our views now, right? I haven't even started my views. I just have an index page. But I think your brain's clicking at this point, like, oh, okay. No problem. So you know what? That's all controllers is. I don't even have to talk about that anymore. We're just going to go ahead and start with our new update and create routes. Cool, right? Okay. So the first route I'm going to create is, instead of routes, I'm going to call this index. Again, like, things cannot be more obvious for me. I wish this had like flashing lights. I don't know. I'll probably miss it anyway. So our routes, again, this is the index routes. We're gonna work on a create route. We're gonna create also a new route. Again, like, I like setting up my files before I start working on them, so I can like kind of understand what I'm trying to do. We have quite a few bit of functionality, but at the end of this lesson, you'll have a full CRUD app. So show, then we're gonna do an update, which is our edit. We're gonna do a destroy. It's like such a brutal word, destroy. And that'll conclude today. It's not too bad, right? Okay, so let's start with our create route. We're able to get our show route, right? Index is the same thing as show, or actually, they're all show. They all show something. So let's start our create route. What we want to do is, I guess I'll put comments underneath it. This will be our post. Cool. All right, so let's build this route first. So router.get, we wanted to go, we're not doing /food, all right? We're gonna do /new. Again, to access this, it'll be 3000 /food/new, and this will hit this route, okay? Again, if this was on the server page and you didn't like specify /food is your route, then what it's gonna do is access /new, which doesn't exist. So again, be cognizant of where you're declaring these. But again, if you only keep one file open, then it shouldn't be too bad. Don't get confused. Okay, so anyway, so this is all familiar to us. .new or /new function rec res. And all I want here is to display. So we're going to use a render. Actually, you know what? Good practices. Let's just send, this is the new page. Let's just make sure this route works. Again, like, there's no such thing as being too cautious. So /new, and I don't get it. Did I save? Did I? Okay, yeah. See? Oh my gosh. I'm so glad I say things out loud. I'm like, save, 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 and I forget to save, I get an error. But again, just the first thing I do before even panicking, I just always save. And it works. Okay. I was like, I swear nothing's broken. And all right. So we know it works. Res.send works. All right, cool. Let's forget about res.send now. Let's actually use our render and start building an actual view. So if you want me to leave comments here, res.render, remember it takes in our view file, name, okay? And what this does, it will automatically, right, automatically checks in views folder. That's what expresses, that's why we put it in folders, controllers. I'm sorry, views folder. So we don't have it created yet, no problem. So at least let's maybe call it, let's call it food/new. Food/new, sure. And let's save that. Okay, so again, if I refresh this, we're gonna get an error because it doesn't know what this is. Also, I have a syntax error. Let's go over this real quick. Syntax error, unexpected token. Don't think too much about this. Just take a look at what line we're getting the error message from. So it's up here, food.js line 23, line 23. This has to be in a string. So there we go, done. Let's save. Restarts, no errors. I restart the page. And we get a new error this time. Totally fine. Error, failed to look up view. Foods new in views directory. Okay, I've seen this error a lot. Make sure you understand what this is telling you. The keywords here is view, cannot find view. It tells you what exactly, which is this, in our views directory. And on our terminal, we'll get the same error message. So we're getting one error. Okay, so again, doing this properly, we're gonna shut down our server, make sure we're in the right directory, make sure we go into the views folder. ls, once again, to make sure we're in the right folder. You don't wanna accidentally put views somewhere else because it'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. So let's call this, we call it new. Okay, we called it new.handlebars. Okay, man, I don't have an excuse. It's 3 p.m. here, not West Coast time. Okay, so we can confirm there is a new.hbs here. Cool, let's go back to our main route, or route. I know these words are crazy. And let's run our server once again. Okay, so see, as soon as we touch this file, we don't get an error message anymore. Let's just confirm by actually hitting this. And yep, we get the same error, I think. Failed to look up views. Okay, because even if we have it, there's nothing in it. So it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So now let's do this. Let's create your new item. I'm not going to pass in data yet or anything. There's no data on new, right? We want to create a new item. We're not actually showing the data. So I'm going to save. Oh gosh, I hope this works. There's that feeling, right? Okay. You know that feeling, right? You're saving it, you're like, please work, and it works. Okay, so no errors here, once more. Restart my page, and oh my gosh. Oh, okay. This is a great error message. I've got this 3 times now. I thought I fixed it. I was totally wrong. Let's take one more look at this error, and I see why. So it's saying, Christine, you have failed to look at view. The view is called food/new in views directory. So let's pretend I'm the computer. Okay, I go into views. And you're right, there is no such thing called food/new, right? So I actually want to create a new folder. Within the views called foods. That's how it's going to find it. And I'm going to move this stuff in here. Okay, so now this should work. Go ahead, save, and restart, go. Okay, so server's so far so good, but let's check the browser. Hooray! I think we hit every possible error message getting our wonderful new page to work. So hopefully all that stuff makes sense. Cool? All right, cool. So we're able to see our H1. Great. So now let's do something here. As far as the new route goes, you know what? This isn't going to create. You know, it's new as well. Our route is done. We have nothing else to do here. So all we're going to focus on then is creating our new route, okay? So here we go. Our new view is basically a form. right? Because we want to fill out a form, and once you press submit, it should show up on the page. That's what this stuff does. So again, you can copy paste, but I like typing things out because then I know what I'm dealing with. But we have a form. We always want to put our input into a form because we learned this thing called method, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to post this. This is one of our HTTP verbs. So far, all we've been seeing is get. Yep, because that's all we've been asking. Just get the stuff, read the information. But now, hopefully, we're going to start to see the word post here. And if we see post here, that means we're successful. All right, so we have posts, but we're also missing one thing called actions. And your action says, all right, where am I referencing this? Like, what controller am I going to? And it's our /food. Is it foods or foods? Oh my gosh. And to find that, it's whatever you called it here. So, okay, it's /food. Again, if you're like stuck, check your spelling. Maybe you put an extra S, maybe you put a singular. Okay, so that's how we're setting up our form. And inside, we just put our inputs here now. If you want fancy HTML, go ahead, make it fancy. At this point, I'm not going to really worry about fancy stuff. So our first input is going to be a spot for you to enter in our new food item. So type text. Right, we worked with all different kinds of input stuff. That's cool, whatever you want. And so the two properties of our input, make sure you declared what kind it is. And secondly, we're going to assign a name to it. And this is description. I'm going to add one more input field because that's what information I have. And you know what? Instead of text, I'm going to put number. I think this will only accept number values in, right? Because I have prices, so I can't have like a string as a price, I guess. And this will be our price. And our final input thing that we're going to need is our button, right? Because what does this do if we can't even submit this stuff? So that'll be input type, and this will be submit. And value will be like the words on the button. So let's say add no item or something. And just to help us out a little bit more visually, I'm going to say description. And let's put price here. Okay, saving it. No error so far. Cool. I'm going to refresh this page. And voila, our form showed up. Cool. Oh, and look, if I hover over here, like input text, input number, yeah, only lets you put numbers. If I try to put like J or something, it won't let me. So that's pretty nifty. All right, so, oh my gosh, get beer. That's from our to-dos thing. So for description, let's say I want to add a hamburger. I don't know what. And price, let's make it $1. Wow, I'm so cheap. We press the submit button, right? And we get this message. Okay, so now we'll build up the next step. How do we tackle these error messages? What pieces are we missing, and how do we go on from here? So here we go. At least we're getting the post right. At least we know that our method is properly set, right? If you get like get here for some reason, that might give you an error. I don't know. I like purposefully breaking things. Does it work? No error here if I saved it, so I guess it works. If I do, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, see, it says get. And that route doesn't exist because it'll say, okay, get /food/new, get /food. Oh, it doesn't exist. So nothing happens. So make sure you have the right method up here. Cool. So one more time, let's get to that error message so we can build out the next part. Food, no. Okay, so it cannot post to food, no. That's fine, and we can confirm this here. So what we got to do is remember, if you're getting this message, it's because it doesn't exist, right? 404 doesn't exist, it's not there. Now I'm going to break until you fix me. So let's go ahead and build this, and that's why I called it create, because this is where this just renders a form. So this is a post that renders a form. That's all it does, but our create is where we're actually going to create this data. Creates the data from the form. Okay, this is a two-part thing, so separate its functionality. Okay, so to actually create this stuff, yeah, we didn't get to create yesterday, so this will be kind of new. So we'll do router dot, and remember what verb this is associated with. Create, right, which is a post. And what it's going to do is it's going to post to, and you tell it where do you want it to post to. You want it to post to the root. Let's do it. So what that means is, remember root at this point is /food. So if we access /food, it'll post at this location. Post where to root, root not being localhost 3000. Remember, we're in the food controller, thus it'll post to the root route of the food route. I know it's complex, so hopefully me repeating it will make some sense of it. It's very confusing. But same syntax, rec res, and this is where things may get a little tricky, but it's not too bad. Okay, so there's like two parts. I'll say there's like three parts. Again, if you like knowing how many parts there should be, there's basically three parts. Again, this is just basic stuff. So if you want to do something more complex, there are obviously more than three parts, but at the very least, it has to be doing these three things in order for it to work. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to declare a new variable. Okay, and I'm just going to call it food. Again, just be careful what you call it, because this is how you're actually going to pass that data onto the page, right, using this stuff. But food is going to be an object, right, because we're passing objects everywhere. If it's not an object, that's why you keep wrapping everything around in an object. That's why this whole page itself is an object, right? But food, it's boring. I just have two key value pairs. For now, I'm just going to demonstrate description and price. Again, where is this coming from? It's from our data model, right? If this is food, then all I have is description and price. Again, you can like modify this. You can add more, whatever you want here, but for now, just description and price. But what are the values of description and price? Okay, this is what it is, and I'll try to describe where this is coming from. So rec.body.description, we'll go through what this is going to be my food.description. Food.price is going to evaluate to rec.body.price. Oh, I keep forgetting if it's comma or colon or whatever. Okay, you know what? Let's test this out. And you know what I'll do? I'll even put a console log here. The create route is accessed or something, so I know this route works. I save it, it restarts, no issues, and I will access /new. Again, this only happens when we submit, so you can't just be like, oh, why isn't it working? You actually have to do the action itself. Let's do a hot dog for $1. Add. Okay, that means it didn't even access our route at all. Again, like you have to go back and forth. But at least you get really cozy with the flow of everything. Okay, so I'm getting an error. It's because I'm trying to post to food/new instead of this. Did I set that up wrong? Huh. I have a post. I have it going to food. Where's it going to post food/new? Let's try to figure this out. So with post, again, it's going to ignore these gets. So all I have right now is one post here. You know what? If I do this, it's saying it's accessing food/new. What if I just declare it as new then? There we go. Okay, so nothing happens here, right? If you look down here, it's saying waiting for localhost. What this means is I sent a request and it's waiting for a response, right? At least on the other routes, we get a response, res.render, we get a view, res.send, like we send back like a string to the front, but we're not actually sending anything back with res, which is why nothing's happening, and your page will just stay still probably forever until it times out. But on our terminal, at least, we got that console log, the create route is accessed. And that's why I just put it there, because if I didn't, I kind of have no idea what's going on, if anything is even working. Okay, so, you know, use console logs. They're for you. Everything as well in your JavaScript files here. Since it's all server-side code, all your console logs here will be showing in the terminal and not in the front. So again, console in the front, there's no errors. Don't even look for errors here. Nothing's going to show up. Sometimes like having no errors is scary, right? So just make sure you're actually looking in the right place. Okay, so let's continue this stuff. So I'll leave this console log here. It helps me to know that my route is working at least. And we're able to debug it just by following the error messages. But so right now nothing's happening. So let's make something happen with this stuff. And what we're gonna do is actually, this is where things get complicated. Okay, so watch what you call your stuff. I declared my data things, and I went over this yesterday. So this will be just like a quick recap. I named my data things, but also in my data, I named that things also. So again, like this whole object is things.things, and I just have to remember that's how I have to access it. So if you get confused, that's normal. Or don't be like me and don't name everything the same. Okay, yeah, it timed out. See, it's like, okay, I didn't get a response, I'm just gonna quit. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna access things.things, right, which was an array. And since this is an array, I'm gonna push onto our array. What am I gonna push? The push function says push in an element, right? And in this case, we're gonna just push in our new food, which is an object itself. So I'm gonna push food. Variable names matter. So if you call this food, put food here. If this is data, data goes here. This is banana, this is banana here. Things is this first things at least is referring to my data. Things.things is referring to this, which is an array. I think this is like the most complicating part. Like, what am I accessing? How can I add? How can I delete from it? Break things down. So what this is doing is I'm pushing new data into my array. You know what? Once that happens, let's console log it. Let's console log things.things, I guess. You can console log whatever you want. Cool. So let's see if this worked. Again, I just worked piece by piece before I even like move on. Is this stuff even saving? Again, your server will be waiting forever because we don't have a response cycle completed here. It's just still waiting forever. But if you check our terminal, our console log says create route is accessed, and things.things is now our array with our final object attached to it. Cool, right? So if I go back, well, it's frozen for now, but I think if I do like, I don't know, burger, I don't know how many burgers we have. Yeah, it'll just keep adding. I think if I do like another one, it'll add that to it. But you see, we're constantly pushing these new objects inside on this click of a button. Just to close the loop, and it like breaks out of this infinite loop, I guess, we're gonna just do res, right? That's our response, res.redirect, and this is where we learn redirect. So instead of like waiting here forever, you could either like refresh this page, I guess, if you wanna go back to /new, but we're gonna just go back to our root directory, which is /food. And I think on it, there's nothing on it yet. So we can go back and make that work. So /food. So again, that being localhost 3000 /food. Let's do this one more time. So hot dog, $1 add. We see hot dog added to our array, and then we see res.redirect has pushed us back to our food. And slash food, again, refers to this route right up here, route.get, and all we do is send food. Send this. So you know what, let's actually build out our index route, okay? Because all I have is a send, and that's totally useless, I think. I think it's a really bad website if you do that. Okay, so instead of res.send, we're gonna do res.render here as well. Actually, before I move to index, let me clarify some things. I hate just saying like, it just works, trust me. Remember how yesterday we saw what rec.params is? It's an actual, remember rec is a huge object. It has multiple properties. Params is one of them, body was one of them. So you know what, actually let's also console log. This is rec.body. Now let's try what rec.body is. Again, like if you don't know why things work, like play around. Console log everything, it's all there. But here we go, check out our console logs. We got a GET request, right? As soon as we hit enter, it's like, okay, show me this page. The create route is access. This is rec.body, and this is all it is. Rec.body was simply an object with two key value pairs, description and price. So that's why when we want to access hot dog, for example, it'll be rec.body.description, and to access the number 2, rec.body.price, and that's why these are here. So obviously, if you name yours something else, and just you're accessing a normal object, right? So if you have a name, property, that's all you do. But where's this coming from? Okay, that's a good question. If you look here, this stuff isn't just because we want it there. It tells you what to do. In input, type, right? The type simply tells you what kind of type it is. So that's why I can put letters in this one and only numbers in this one. But as well, name. This is how it knows what description is. So if you have like a typo here, and you're like, okay, I pretend it says descriptions, but I actually want dot description, this is where you may also get an error. Okay, let's add that. So rec.body, you saw, yeah, I put hot dog price 1, but rec.body here is descriptions and price because these names are coming from this form. So that's why under this new object, it says undefined. So if you're getting undefined, make sure we're actually passing in the right data. So I'm going to delete that, right? There's my typo. So now I know, now we know that this property is actually linked to our form's inputs name. Good to know, right? Cool. So that's as far as I'll go with rec.body. You know how to access it now. If you ever get confused, just console log it. Exactly what is coming in. This is all for you. So I guess I'll leave these console logs here. So now we can move on to our index page. Right, because all I have right now is just yay, and that's totally pointless. So let's build our render route. Now that you know, right, sometimes we accidentally put like a slash in front of it, and that means it's looking in a different place. So we actually want to be accessing the foods folder within views. We're going to access index. And you know what, let's, you know, that's fine. This is going to cause an error, and I want to explain why. So let's go to the main route. And here we go. This looks familiar again, right? Error, failed to look up view again. Oh my gosh. Food/index in views directory. Again, pretend you're like understanding this. So view, and you're right, there is no foods/index. My index page is outside of that folder. So let's plop it in there. All right, so now it's in the right place. We're accessing food/index. This is exactly what it's trying to look for. So let's restart it. And that's why index works now. Okay, and our error messages go away. Okay, so our index page, let's open that up. I'm done with the new route. That's it. That's all new is. Not too bad, right? I'm gonna close this out because I don't need it. And let's work on our index page. Again, like whatever order you want to work on, it doesn't matter. As long as you are able to like be at a place where there are no errors, right? Because if there's an error, if there's a syntax error anywhere, it'll like shut down your whole app. So that's why save constantly. Notamon is super smart. It'll detect any changes as soon as you save. But here we go. So as of yesterday, we were able to push forward our data. But since I like moved into a different place, let's set this up now. So I think I'm gonna call this. Remember, our second parameter is an object, so you can't just put like things. Remember that. We're gonna put that in an object. And just to make it look pretty, we could separate it, as long as you know that this is an object here. But I want to send it food. And again, this is a new variable I'm declaring, or not variable, I guess my terminology should be good. This is my new key I'm declaring, food. It could be anything. And the actual contents of this key is going to be things.things. So things.things, remember, is that array. Okay, it's an array. Save. Now remember, sorry if you hear the sirens. If you remember, this key has to match with this. So I'm gonna save it. I think it's good to like go through bugs, why things aren't working, because you're like, I set it up properly, I copy pasted it, it totally worked in class. Let's see. We access food. Nothing shows up, right? And you're like, oh, I don't have an error here, I don't have an error here, but my data's not showing. Make sure, first of all, you're actually saving this stuff in an object, which we are. Okay, so that's done. But are we actually calling this on the page correctly? So the answer is no. We want not data, not food. And I guess that's all. Let's save it and refresh. And that's why our food shows up here. Cool. And let's get rid of this obnoxious header. And that's our index page. So usually I will work on index first, but like it doesn't really take too much time for either one. So again, just make sure you know which piece you're working with. Try not to get too many errors because it'll get really hard to distinguish it. All right, so we got index, new, create, done. Okay, let's work on show. So the show page, what that means is like, if I were to click on hamburger, or if I have a link that says, you know, I want to see more details on this hamburger or this donut, then it'll show its own page. And we could totally do that. And that's basically how like most of the internet works anyway. So this should be pretty familiar to us. Okay, so let's go down to our show. See, like this like guides me to know what to do next. So show is a GET request, right? Because we simply want to display information on the page. It's not like we're going to modify it. We're not going to delete it. We just want to see one piece of data out of like the whole array out of it. Oh, you know what? Before I do this, let's test out our new route. I said we're done, but never want to pretend it's actually done. So just to recap, we press new. This is rec.body. I have my whole things.things printed so I can like visualize what information is in my whole array. Post was successful, right, with the 302. And then we got a GET request for food because we asked it to redirect back to food. So as soon as it does that, there's constant cycles going back and forth here. And then it shows up here. And because we're not working with a real database, all this stuff is just live for this instance, right? As long as the server is up and running, but as soon as we shut it down and I run Notamon again and I restart my food page, that's gonna go away because remember, on my index page, I'm asking it to render food, which is things.things, which at this point in time is literally just these two. So don't freak out if it's gone. It is gonna go away. There are ways to work around it. You can like literally write things to that file if you want, and you can check it out. But I wouldn't worry about that too much. Just know if it disappears, it's probably because you close your server. Anyway, so far so good. Are we good with new, create, and index? Because that part's done. All right. Alrighty, so now let's continue to show. Always test your work. Never pretend it's fine, because if you fix one bug, 99 more will show up, and it's not a good place to be. Okay, so for our show, since we don't really have functionality going on here, this isn't too bad. So remember, we're gonna use this thing now. We got pretty comfortable with it yesterday, so just like bear with me. We'll be able to kind of break this down. Exactly why are we doing this? And what this show does is displays each individual, I guess, item in our things.things array. That's what this is doing. That's what this route is doing. If it helps you to write notes to like keep your sanity, go for it. But here we're going to declare a new variable as well. Let's call this food item. And what this is going to be, again, I want to go through my things.things array, and I want it to find some index value, right? Like whichever one I choose. And I think you understand now, instead of like hard coding what it is or like figuring it out, we simply require whatever number this is, right? So if we go to like number 1, then it should access number 1, for example. And remember, to access this value, it's rec.params.id. Cool. So remember yesterday we also said, you know, you can name this anything you want. I could call this food if I want to be really confusing. But then you have to make sure that we're calling it food here as well. Otherwise it'll get undefined because it doesn't exist. But you know what? For the rest of the course, you're probably going to be using ID. It's very descriptive. Mongo uses ID as well. So you know what? We're going to go ahead and stick with ID. So if you want, like, let's just console log what is, let's console log what is food item, right? I created this variable called food item. What am I going to do with it? Now, in order to access this route, I'm actually going to ask somebody. Sorella, hi. Can I ask you, I don't know when you came in, sorry. How can I test out this route on my browser?
Just by like typing whatever else you want on top after that, after dash and something else?
Yep. Yeah, sure. Let's do like new or something.
Well, new has something already.
Yes, it does. Let's try.
So like, I don't know, banana.
Not banana.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I get an undefined right here. Because I cannot access things.things index of banana, right? So I'm going to get an undefined. So again, even if you don't get an error message here, you get one, and you don't, this is technically not an error message, but it's not what we want, right? So again, like your biggest hint is telling you what's the latest routed access. It'll tell you there's an issue somewhere here. So we know it's somewhere here. So let's put like number 1. Let's press enter. Okay, so once we press enter, our console log showed up, and I wanted it to show me what is food item. And it tells us food item is an object with the key value pair, description, and price. Cool. So we know it works.
I think I got your question wrong. I just understood what you were asking.
It's okay. Sometimes I ask questions to even see if I make sense or not. So it's all good.
Okay, cool.
I'm like, did I even make sense? I don't know. But anyway, we're almost done with this. Right down here, we're waiting and waiting again because it's like, okay, I gave you a request. Now where's my response? So if you're like, nothing's happening, again, go to your route. Make sure we have some kind of res function happening here. So in this case, it's going to be a render. We want it to show the thing, right? That's the whole point of this. So we want it to go to food, and food again being the name of the full, oh, look at that. Food. Oh, wait, no. See, I'm already confusing myself. Wait. Yes. Foods, right? Because we're accessing the file under views. And the file name, which we are going to create, we'll call it show. I think at this point you'll understand. You get a error. Fail to look up view. That same error. Now it's your best friend. Oh, okay, I know why I'm getting this error because I don't have it created. It's up to you. If you want to go ahead and like build all your views all at once, go for it, I guess. Yeah, why not? I'm just demonstrating it step by step in case you come across issues and you know why it's happening. But yeah, if you want to like, before you even start your controllers page, you can fill up all your 5 views if you want. No problem. As long as it works in the end. Okay, so there's my show page. Again, I have too many tabs open, so I'm going to close this stuff. You know what? Let's put something. This is the show page. Okay, so I start it. Automatically restarts. And let's try to access this one more time. Ugh. Actually, can someone point out why this isn't working? I get the same error. It didn't change. It's looking for food/show views directory, but what did I do wrong here? Can you even see it? If you're looking here, this is fine. But right, we never really pay attention to this. I'm always like,
you don't need the extension of the file name?
Yeah, exactly. It's show, but it doesn't know what this is. Show what? So I'm gonna save as show.handlebars. That's a good mistake to make. So now it knows, oh, okay, this is now a handlebars file, and the show is just some random text file. It doesn't even have an extension. So I'm going to delete that one. And JJ, yesterday I explained, like, you can definitely specify the extension name, especially maybe if you have, like, for some reason, show.index or show.html, show.js, then it'll know, like, which show to look for. But by default, it just chooses, like, this one. So without it, it'll work as fine. So anyway, so let's restart this. And it works. Look, it says this is the show page. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I know you guys are like, oh, I get so many errors, but look at me. I'm getting every error right now. Totally normal. It actually makes you stronger, I think. If you do everything perfectly, like, how do you know what doesn't work? And then also, why are you here? Go get a job. Okay, so we have our page rendering. Now we work on our show page. We're done with our route. That's all this is. That's all this needs. We just declare exactly which one we're going to be displaying. It takes a rect.params and access the array by putting in that number there. And we are going to render. Oh, I lied again. That's not it. We have to send data, right? Again, it's an object. So let's do it like that. And, you know, I'm going to mix things up. I'm going to be inconsistent, right? Because we're not all perfect. That's fine. I'm going to call this data this time instead of food, right? Let's pretend like I'm really tired. I call it data, no problem. The value I'm passing in is actually going to be this stuff, which again is just the object, right? It's just this thing. I'm passing this in as our object. And you can already foresee, oh, okay, if this is my object, then I just need to access data.description, data.price. That's exactly what we're going to do. So I'll save this, and now we can come here. Right, so we called it data. Up here, I called it food. Here. And on the create route, we access it by food, but here I'm going to call it data. So you know what? Let's just see if handlebars works. Let's see if this view route works. I'm going to refresh the page, and here we go. We have this weird little object array